Hi, I'm Jyoti Rai, and you're listening to Ether Wire, your quintessential plugin for personal and business growth. This podcast is dedicated to the Wisdom Project 108 podcast series. The attempt with the Wisdom Project is go back to our ancient archives, our old ancient lanes. We went back in the timelines. We are talking about 540 odd BC, and we met Buddha. Buddha gave us the middle path. He gave us compassion. He brought to our attention equanimity, the epitome of mindfulness to achieve. Now we found it very difficult how we can go and tell the world what equanimity is. Is meditation all that is required to become Buddha? Or is it the path that you have to build and walk every single day? We were confused. Somewhere Darwin's theory of evolution, as we know, survival of the fittest, was misinterpreted. But I guess we are looking at it in a wrong way. Survival of the fittest is not walking over somebody else's shoulder. Here is, we went searching for a leader who embodies these qualities, who today is a role model, who is beyond titles, and as we say, and as he is popular, meet the Buddha of Indian markets, Ashish Chauhan. Welcome to the Wisdom Project. Thank you for joining in. How are you?
Thank you. Doing well.
Feeling good?
Yep.
Will it be fair to say that this kind of an interview could be among your first one to give? There has been books written on this.
There are lectures I have given on how to live Gita. So
wow.
There are myriad of different dimensions in life.
So let's dive into this interview. Before I start the Wisdom Project, of course, we'd say all with this prayer, which I'm saying on behalf of everyone. Astoma Sadgamaya, Tamsoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Let's reintroduce and celebrate the timeless wisdom that has encapsulated the Vedic teachings with Ashish Chauhan. Ashish ji, your life has been pretty much an example for many of us. And here I'm picking up the definition of your role model when you came into the industry.
Anyway, when you are young, you have gone through, in those days there was no net, right? So you read books and learnt about people, places, situations, incidents. And so in our days, Mahatma Gandhi was a very large influence on most of us. And naturally, he was the greatest leader in modern times. We had almost post, say, Shivaji Maharaj. And so it was very recent post-independence. And we had survived as a nation. When I started kind of understanding things, people did not think India will survive as a nation for long, and we did survive. And so Mahatma Gandhi clearly had a great influence on me personally, but probably many people in our generation. And coming from Gujarat, naturally, when I literally played as a child next door to Gandhi Ashram. So I was playing in Gandhi Ashram and I was staying next door to Gandhi Ashram. So in a way, it was very personal and physical for me about Mahatma Gandhi. But then there were other leaders of our times, Martin Luther King or Ambedkar or Subhash Chandra Bose, Nehru, Bhagat Singh. And so we had many more people, role models to kind of look up to. And they were very sharp characters in the way they were portrayed to us, not necessarily. Later on, when you go through the life, probably you realize that everyone has ups and downs and everyone stumbles and sort of figures out the new wisdom and evolve. But when you look back at the full life of somebody, you think that person was same across, because that's how you understand that person. But slowly you understand them more, you realize they were humans and they had their own misunderstandings, follies. The situation changed, they changed, that's why they were great, right? So, and that kind of wisdom slowly towards the end of your career you start getting, not at the beginning, but naturally they pursued a path for the truth they believed in, and in a way many of them were having universal truth of thoughts of doing good for others and things like that. And so that's where basically the way I see India, the modern India shaping up, has naturally this is the longest civilization which has been in existence, and so they were influenced by their predecessors.
Absolutely.
And so on and so forth, and they saw social issues around them, and naturally as a science student we had role models in Einstein and Feynman and so many others who were again great in their own ways, but then they were also sort of tortured as humans in some ways, like Einstein had to run away from Europe. And so in some ways you realize their lives, how they evolved, and then later on when we lived through the life, probably some of the business icons of India and also across the world, from Dhirubhai Ambani to Ratan Tata to Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. And so you learn from all of them, but you also know that they have been humans like you and me. And for me, that is also a good thing to be, that at the end you realize that everyone is human. And still they all try to do best they can for themselves. Of course, many of them, like Steve Jobs or most entrepreneurs, they do better for themselves, but in the process also help the society. But there are people who are doing only helping the society, and that's where this differentiate, but their impact could be equally good on the rest of the world.
Very interesting. I think you mentioned that today we have Google, we have information just a click away. But the times when you were starting your journey as a student and then subsequently in your job, your role models were through the books, and you discovered Mahatma Gandhi, you read about Shivaji Maharaj and so many others. The inspirations that you guys have had access to still is existing, but people are finding, the netizens are finding role models in very different characters, which is where you give a very good shade about certain age you were reading certain books, then in professional journey you were inspired by certain different people, and then so on and so forth. Any character, any role model that really helped you invisibly in your career within the financial markets?
In a way, I think two opposing characters, not knowingly, but over a period, you tend to get a little more insight from what they did in life, what their sort of what you think about them. I think Gautam Buddha and Krishna had sort of so much is written about them, and so many situations and so much of their preachings, or what other people have preached about them, also has had a great role, because they were in a way living in societies which were full of complexities, and they were trying to search for answers or work in a particular way, and finding solutions to life. So in some ways you tend to assimilate as you go with variety of sort of influences, but naturally being in a very rich civilization with so many things about every character that influence this society, kind of enriches your understanding also. But in some ways, one of the, probably it's my character, probably it's my laziness, but in some ways I thought not being in race is a good idea. So I wanted to be a spectator, right? And in life, in everything, naturally, because you are sort of a living thing, you have to survive, you have to work for your survival. But that not being in race is an interesting
this is so
positioning, which I took it not because of I think anything else. It's just probably a little bit of nature, but largely laziness. That why would you? I mean, everyone should run. If they are running race, you are trying to stay behind and check it out, and not even comment, right? So that's where basically you want to be what we call an observer more than an actor in any activity. And then naturally you have to act because you are a human being, and so you are surviving. So you need to act. But if you work as an observer, which is neutral, without interest, because in Hindu philosophy there is even Buddhist philosophy. Basically, you need to have that ability to see neutrally, right? And that is a very important trait in life for anyone. And that's what slowly, when I, of course, I studied in Gujarati medium, so we did not have the opportunity to read a lot more literature in English. So we had books on Indian things which were translated from Sanskrit or otherwise, and so we learned out of that, and broadly it has remained more Indian mind than anything else. That doesn't mean that later on, after age 17, when I started learning English, I read a lot in English today, but broadly the base remains of Indian philosophy, and not only one strand, but many strands of Indian sort of philosophies of different schools and different thought processes. When I was studying in IIT, it was an engineering school on a very regimented way, but there were some electives in last year which you could take, and one of the courses which I took was on the Western philosophy. And that was an eye-opener of how they think. In their philosophy is more on how to organize society. And we also had those philosophers like Chanakya and all, how to organize state. Well as most of what we are taught in our philosophy is basically about thinking, about personal enlightenment and stuff like that. While as theirs was more about how to organize the societies, and starting from Socrates or Plato onwards, and even the Kant and the newer modern people. And so that was an interesting
So you've seen through the evolving literature of putting a structure to society, putting a regime to the management of the society or cities and stuff comes
and then
and other things.
I had opportunity to take course on ethics and business, which was very rare in those days.
Yes, it still is.
And it was also largely about meditation.
हम लोग घूम फिर एक मेडिटेशन तो करने वाले हैं आज से यहाँ पे.
But in IIM Calcutta of those days, it was like a professor of finance who kind of branched out saying, I will take this course also. And that's how probably 5-7 of us took that course, and it used to be done in library.
When was this? How old were you?
This was in 1990.
1990, okay.
Right. So in some ways, of course, there were few discussions and but largely meditation. So that's how inherently from childhood I have been religious and into all the what I call not the ritualistic practice, but more philosophical life of it. And there was a kind of a feeling in my family that I'll become a monk while
I wanted to pick up that up.
But broadly, it was always a strand which is parallel in my life, to not be attached to anything, and it has remained. And whenever you kind of slowly over a period, it gathers more strength, and as far as you can survive to the extent you are sort of required to, you don't require much else actually. So you don't have to gather things, but then again staying in society, there is an expectation to gather, and that's how the life goes on. So, but if you stay detached from the results of your actions, or detached from your desires, or sort of detached from relationship to the extent you can, it gives you a framework where you can focus on the problem at hand.
No, I think, Ashish, absolutely. In fact, I thought I was, if it's about predictions, right? We all predict and we all like to see the future. And there was a conversation, I remember, a few years back, that many years back within the industry, we were like friends coming together and saying, okay, if we have to give character roles to some of the leaders we have, who would be the Brahma and who will be the Vishnu and who will be, in your case, it was never about the Dev and Devas and all. It was like, if there's a Buddha to be born in the financial market, how would he look like? So it was Ashish Chauhan.
Thank you.
So I wasn't aware that there was a so-called bachpan ka ek rumor कि ये तो monk बनेगा. So I'm sure there are a lot of observers in the industry and outside which are looking at you from the similar, from a similar lens. That the qualities that you have demonstrated, and consistently, that's because that's your character. You're not putting out a made-up face. That you always had a very distinct personality. We know this, and I've been saying this time and again, that this guy is different. This leader is different. Okay, you mentioned something so important, Ashish, that not being in the race while everybody is running towards something. You chose to not participate in the race, and which people cannot fathom. The stature that you are today as a leader of an exchange, and not just any other exchange, it's where your journey started. So you're also completing a circle of professional life. You went and set up equally important, strong institution like BSc, and you came back. But this is not about your, it's of course is a huge canvas of deliverable expected out of you. But I believe the way we interpret it was not about that. I think it's the distal leadership that you brought in, and it made all the difference. Today, look how NSE is progressing, how vibrant the exchanges are today. Thanks to the exchanges, the markets are vibrant. My question to you is, first of all, your message to all those who believe in the Darwin's theory of survival, and they make the ecosystem or place environment little harsh for new entrants. Which
eventually, for me, you will have to select, that even if you are not in race, you still have to survive, right? And so, how do you do that? Because you become so demotivated to work because you are not in the race, then how do you do anything, right?
Yeah.
And so, what comes to this framework is Nishkam Karma. That is basically, and it's not easy. I mean, at age, I think 26 or 27, I went for Vipassana meditation first time, and then a few more times. But basically, at the end, when you do 10 days of pure meditation, come out with no speaking, no touch, no human touch.
Arya Mohan, as they say, ishara bhi nahi kar sakte.
Right. So, when you come back and you realize that you have to remove your desires and stuff like that, and not sort of be aggressive, but basically then how do you get motivation to do anything, right? So I think that is a little bit of a dichotomy there for people to think that if you are not in the race, how do you do any work at all, right? Because then you are just a passive thing. But if you are active without self-interest, probably the results you achieve are better, but then the motivation is not there. That's why you don't work so hard. So if you can motivate yourself from within, then you are able to work, and that is where I developed a philosophy of, and there is enough and more written in India on that also, of Nijanand. That is the happiness from within. That your happiness is not
dependent on
something else you achieve or something else, some goal you achieve, or it is from here, right? So you can't be made unhappy by something not happening, or promotion not happening, or money not coming or something. But if you are happy and you still want to work and continue at the highest level at which the most motivated selfish person is able to do, broadly you will not make as much money if that is something is successful, but or you will not achieve what other people achieve in what their goals were, but you will still do some reasonably well for yourself, but also it will help the society. So that's where, for me, Indian philosophy has many examples. One of them naturally is Krishna, but Buddha and many others who have done this, who have told us how to do it. Of course, we can say it's easy to say, and they were in a way gods or godlike because they were exceptions, and we can only attempt to become like them.
Absolutely.
But why not? We should attempt, and that's how my philosophy is, that someday you want to be away from race, but still you get drawn in. Other people will make you run, and think you are part of the race, and they will also attack you, and those things will happen, and you still have to go without any malice or without any worries about other people or they hurting you. They will probably still hurt you, but you have to continue to be on your path, and sometimes you also might get sort of killed, but that is besides the point, right? If you survive and you go in that path, it will be a more, what I call, equanimous, less worrisome path.
Worrisome. Coming to worries. So when you mentioned about Nishkam Karma, so basically it's in reference to Bhagavad Gita, which talks about ki karam karo, phal ki chinta mat karo. Basically,
continue to do the work, and if you don't get the results, it's okay. Continue to doing more work, and even if you get results, continue to do more work, right? So the detachment of the results, the causality of action and outcome is where most of us are used to doing action with outcome.
Yes.
And it is a human nature, because you want to drink water, you take water and drink, and so there is a desire, you act, and outcome is that you are now no longer thirsty, right? So and similarly something else happens, you think somebody else did it. Possible that somebody else did it, but possible that some portion of it was not done by anyone. It's happened out of circumstances, right?
Absolutely.
And so those are the kind of things which one needs to understand, because the philosophy of Nishkam Karma, Karma Nevadhikaraste, is basically that continue to do your karma, but it's not easy to motivate yourself to do karma without results, right?
We'll come to the motivation, guys, for sure. Just to clarify, you mentioned you did your Vipassana when you were 26 and 27 years.
Correct.
That's when the kids today go for treks and, other places and adventures, bungee jumpings and stuff like that. I have done Vipassana and I found it the toughest thing I've ever done. I wish I would have done it earlier. What was your reason for Vipassana for a young mind like yours then?
No, in a way, there was, I always
was
wanted
a compulsion, or there was a friends going, and what
I
really
went alone, and it's not that I have not done trekking or I have not done mountaineering. I have done my share of mountaineering and things like that. But basically, for me, it was a part of the journey which.
How did it happen? Like, what inspired you? I remember meditation was not about me that time. But when I did Vipassana, I became addicted to this world. And my trigger was there. I had a situation in life which I think I did best to kind of just calm myself and face it with more preparedness and more clarity. So my triggers were there. What was your trigger?